It's supposed to be the news, but this just in. It is halfway through 2026 and I've got some questions to answer thanks to a couple of folks tagging me in Rolling Reggie's mid-year board game tag. Stick around to find out my answer. Hello everybody and welcome to the Boardgaymergirl channel. If you're new here, my name is Natalie and I like to talk about all things board games, but from a primarily solo perspective. Today we have a special video, thank you to Ilya and Tyler from Covray and Jenna from the Board Game Garden who recently tagged me in Rolling Reggie's mid-year board gaming tag. So this is my first year participating in this tag and it feels a little like when, well, if you were around for the old age of emails and you would send different friends a list of random questions that they'd have to answer and then send off to 10 other friends or you'd get bad luck. There is no bad luck consequence to this, but this is a specifically board game tag where I review kind of the games that I've played for the last year and I answer some of these questions with some of the games that I've played so far. Before we get into it, I think it's important to say where I'm starting from. So for 2026, so far, mid-year through the year, I have played 135 different games and I've played 198 times. Fun fact, I've also played with 47 different people, which is weird for a person who primarily concentrates on solo games. But I mean, the more the merrier, right? Without further ado, let's get into the beginning of these questions. So I'll have 9 of these questions that I'll answer here, but feel free to answer for yourselves in the comments below. I'll leave all of the questions below so that anyone that I tag, including if you'd like to participate, can just add them below. Or of course, you can join my most recently opened Discord and answer these questions in the chat and we can converse. Without further ado, let's get to question number 1. So for question number 1, it asks, which game would you take on a second date? So, assuming that we understand how dates work, the first date is essentially your first play of a game, and which game did you play one time that you'd like to play again? I think the game that I'd most like to try out again is Explorers of Navoria, and Explorers of Navoria is a game that I do not own, but was introduced to me at a local event called TabsCon, where a friend, aka Jenna, brought the game for a few of us to play. But the game itself is really interesting. So there's a couple of different phases. There's a first phase where you're going into a bag to search around for different clickety-clicks of wooden circular components that you'll take out of the bag, and they symbolize taking different actions or different cards or factions. I can't quite remember. Depending on your choice of taking out maybe 2 or 3 different tiles from the bag, you will pick a set of cards and that ends up starting your tableau or engine building in your own personal area. After this phase is done of everyone taking out a certain amount of tokens from the bag, then you'll go to the next phase where all the tokens that were placed on the side of the board on different cards and stuff, you'll be able to take those tokens to utilize them on the main board to take those actions, along with moving along different land areas, which will unlock different things or give you more points if you're the person who has explored that land the furthest in around. And of course, you have your own tableau of cards, you have different things going on. There's little mini things that are going on, but it makes a big and not like super complex game, but I do like games that tend to have these little mini phases where you kind of concentrate on something and being able to utilize something from one phase to another phase to continue the game, I really like, and it's really interesting. So I would love to take Explorers of Navoria on a second date. With that, the next question that we have is a little simpler, and that is simply, which game hit the table more than any other this year? And for campaign games, I've played Cozy Stickerville, and this is actually one that I've been playing with my mother for a while. We quickly got up to year 8, and the game consists of 10 years. So I played this with my mom. We included my sister for a couple of rounds when she visited. I ended up getting her a copy because it's a neat and interesting type of game. The game that I feel is closest to Animal Crossing, and that is a video game that my sister liked a lot. So I thought it kind of crossed boundaries of gaming activities. And then my mother had never actually played a kind of story adventure game like that in video game or board game form. So it's been really interesting. I really like it. It's unique in its own way, even though there are a few games out there that are trying to chase that narrative cutesy adventure that's kind of like a calm time. But that was played 8 times so far. We are still trying to finish the 2 rounds of the game to finish it completely. So the next game that I have, or the next question that I have, is what game gave me my biggest surprise? And I think this one was harder because in general, I am going to say that party games have become a bigger part of my world recently, and party games were games kind of that I probably poo-pooed on a little bit more. One, I'm a solo gamer, so having a party game is hard by yourself. But as I've obviously been playing with more people, party games, I think, serve an essential activity in board gaming. And sometimes party games I find as sometimes closer to an activity than feeling like something I would categorize as a board game. But a board game that is kind of feeling like a party game and a surprise was a game called Magical Athlete, because I can't believe the amount of fun and ridiculousness that goes on. It's basically a roll and move game. The thing that makes it so funny and unique, especially it depends on the people that you're playing with and how interactive you want to be with talking about the funny things that occur, is having the different draft of the characters that you play as. So there's big chunky little meeples that you'll use as your figures that you're moving around the board, but they all come with different abilities while you're playing, and how those different abilities interact with each other. Like, it's really just a roll and move game. So on paper, it just wasn't looking that exciting for me. But in actuality, when you're playing it, it just causes a lot of funny moments. I think a similar game, and this isn't on my list this year because I don't think I played it this year yet, but it's similar to like Wilmot's Warehouse, where it's an experience that, depending on the group of people you're with, it becomes something that is really memorable and hilarious. And in general, party games tend to do that for me. So along with this question is my biggest disappointment of the year, and I wouldn't call this my biggest disappointment. It was more like my biggest letdown, in the sense that I highly anticipated this game. I had played it before. I had backed it. The meaning of the game was so important to me and felt so personal to me. And like, I respected the designers and the publishers and different games that they've had previously that were set around historical periods and kind of educational. And ironically, it is also a game that has roll and move in it as one of the main mechanics that you're using. And the game is called Molly House. And the game is basically just a board, and you're rolling and moving to move around it and have the different action spaces allow you to do things. And then there's kind of also like a trick-taking round where you're trying to do that. But a lot of how the game plays is structured around a historical period, as most of Whirligig games are. But for this one, it's based off of a time where men and women who wanted to wear drag, it was seen as a criminal offense, and this was kind of monitored by the Reformation of manners, and therefore your gender was kind of policed at the time. I mean, not that it isn't policed now, which is why, ironically, I thought it was an important game to have come out at this time. And the game background of it was just so important to me, and I had played this game before at a convention, and I think they just went through a whole bunch of different iterations, and for some reason when I got the game and I tried to play this with 5 different people, we all had a difficult time trying to get through the game. And part of it is probably because while there are basic small mechanics to do, and I thought it would also be the easiest game to approach and play of the Whirligig lineup, the roll and move is fine. The trick taking to a degree can be a bit more difficult in the sense of how endgame happens. And endgame can happen in 3 different ways. One, either the community has enough joy and therefore regular scoring occurs, or if the community doesn't have enough joy and one of the houses or all of the houses are raided, then any kind of rats that ratted people out to the Reformation of Manners, then they would win the game based on different parameters. Or if none of the 2 other things occurred, then nobody won the game and we all poo-pooed. But again, it has been a really long time since I played the game, so I'm not entirely remembering things properly enough. I just remember that it was so frustrating for everyone, and a lot of us play games regularly that were at the table, that it was tough because of what the game meant to me at the time. So it was more of a letdown in that sense, in that it just wasn't necessarily a game for me. Sometimes it's just difficult for those games that you like really, really highly anticipate in general, that tend to be the reasons that they end up being a disappointment. Compared to something that you know nothing about whatsoever, you play it and then you're so like overwhelmed with joy for having discovered that game. So, I mean, that's how that disappointment works on this list. But I will move on to the next game. The next question. So the next question says, what games, art, or production impressed you the most? So I think for this question, I have 2 different answers because I'm going to say art specifically, and I'm going to say production specifically as an overall something that impressed me for the year. So for art, I'm going to say The Old King's Crown, as that's one that I got this year and played for the first time this year. And just the art in general, this is from a first-time designer who also obviously now designed the game, but they did all of the art for the game as well, and it is just like, whoa, like mind-blowing. And I'm finding there's a few different people that have come out recently with board games that they design and they do all the art for, and it's not AI art, which is extra important and nice. But for production, I'm going to say the game that impressed me the most, just because of like pure expanse of amount of content that you have to create for this game as well. And the game is called Vantage, and this is from Stonemaier Games. And it's kind of an adventure game, but it is not a campaign game, but it is a game that feels like it's a campaign game. You only get to play it in single sessions, which is something that I've been looking for in general in gaming. I feel like the epic campaign game with big boxes and minis and all that is kind of over the hill at this point. And those are basically crowdfunded games. And I feel like crowdfunding in general, people are diversifying more of what they're looking for. And those big epic campaigns just worked really well maybe during the pandemic when you're alone and you can't go out anywhere, so you have the time as an adult. But I digress. The reason that Vantage is on this list for production is, one, because of being able to make like what, 1,300 cards that are all different events, different landing spots on a planet. They still connect to stories, and then the cards that you have, you'll have to make a choice, and depending on the different choice that you make, you'll go to a different book, which will read a different passage. So there's a lot of picking things up and putting things back. So one, the way that the box is organized for all of these cards, I mean, essentially you're just putting the cards in order Ever, kind of like Seventh Continent. But it also is really neat to have the different books that you'll be utilizing to advance your story in whatever one single session you're doing. So in general, for production value, and the box itself is like £10, and it's just cards and books, no minis. I think they deserve this award from me. That, like, who cares? Anyways, the next question, and we're over halfway done now, is the most reliable introductory board game. And for this one, I find this a difficult question to answer, only because when I introduce games, especially to newer players or casual players, I tend to ask them about what other hobbies they like. So people that like puzzles, I'm going to introduce them slowly into tile-laying games. For people that come from a background of cards, if it's euchre, then it's going to be trick-taking games. And so on and so forth, as I build the connections of hobbies that people like and how they might transition to a gateway game that shows off a particular mechanic, but a single mechanic pretty much, instead of more complex mechanics. But for this year, what I'm going to say is probably Lord of the Rings, the card game. No, Lord of the Rings, the trick-taking game. Lord of the Rings, the card game is not an introductory gateway game. But Lord of the Rings, the trick-taking game, is one that I've introduced to my family, as trick-taking is a big thing. But it's a cooperative game, so we can work together. And then also Lord of the Rings as a theme and the IP that a lot of people know of, I think is a really good introduction to trick-taking that pulls them in with a theme if they enjoy Lord of the Rings. For other games that I've played this year, so if it's tile placement, an oldie but a goodie is always Azul for me, I find. It can be a little trickier as you're working through the scoring of how Azul works, but I find it is one that catches on once people play it at least once. Another game that I used to introduce people to gaming, and was an easy way when I was hosting board games, because I used to help out Changeling Gamings who do different hosted gaming events around the city of Toronto, and Flip 7 really catered to larger groups. But it was also just a card game that was similar to Blackjack, which is a game that a lot of people know of. And if they don't know about it, it is like simply like one or two mechanics, and you say, I'm either going to keep going and push my luck, or I'm going to stop. And it's basically whoever gets to 200 points wins the game. But it really gets the table talking as well, and it's a really easy way to introduce people into games that are just really simple, easily accessible. Number 6 says, which cult of the old titles, so 10 plus years old, did you discover for the first time this year? And for this one, it's an easy one because I just played it recently, and the game is called The Prince of Florence. Princes of Florence. Why do I get that wrong every time? But The Princes of Florence is a game that was published in 2000, I think it is, and it's got a few different really neat mechanics. You are bidding on tiles to put in your little placement area where you're putting buildings and landscape tiles in order to complete different contract cards that you have in your hand of different people who are asking you to create different works, and you'll score points off of that. But as you're bidding, no one knows just how much money everybody has each round to bid. So there's some strategy within that. And then strategy within how many points are you going to take, and how many of those points in that round are you going to convert into money to go into future rounds. The person with the most points wins. It was like 2000. I was still young. I think I was just graduating elementary school at that time. And to think this game was out at that time, well, there were a lot of games out before, obviously, when I was young. There's been a lot of games, but it's really neat. And for me to have only played it this year, it feels like something that must have been created in like 2020, not the 2000s. But it was really interesting, and I highly suggest trying it out if you can get your hands on it. The number 7 question that I have is, what is currently at the top of your wish list? So I divided this up because I have a lot of things on my wish list, but I have some games that I've already played that are on my wish list, and some games I haven't played, I'd like to play, but without having the knowledge of having played them, I still have them on my wish list, but who knows if they will fall flat. Of games I have played, I have Forestry, which is, I think, by Pink Troubadour. The first time I played it, it was okay. By the second time I played it, I really liked it. Again, there's a bunch of different mini things. You're putting some tiles on the board. You're building up different cards and contracts. And it's just a lot of little mini games. I tend to like that. Well, no, I would say calling it a bunch of different mini games a longer stretch, but a bunch of different ways that you can gain victory points at the end game. So there's a lot of different paths to trying to get victory. But Forestry is one, Explorers of Navoria, which I've already gone over, and Kokeshi, which is a game that I played earlier this year, and it has a solo mode as well, but you're going up different tiles, and the acrylic tiles are really nice and chunky, and you're trying to move your worker up these tiles, which open up different actions, but as you move a worker up, it'll signal a different worker to move up its track, and as you move these workers up, you'll be adding more tiles into the areas on your own personal grid in order to try and score the most points. So it was a really neat puzzle-like game, but the components are really great and it has a solo mode. So of games that I haven't played that I want to play and I would also put on my wish list include Emberleaf, because I've heard so much about it and this card dancing mechanic. Sweetlands, which I haven't played yet either, and they also have Rosalie coming out recently, and I really need to catch up on trying out those games. And then another game that is a little bit older, not too old, but just one I haven't been able to play yet is Civolution, because I've heard many good things about this Stefan Feld game. And though it looks super huge, it's apparently not the worst to try to learn and then also to play solo. So I'm curious about that one since I've been hearing good things about it. Second to last question, folks, so we're almost done. And this question says, for number 8, shout out a creator, podcast, blog, Flags, which is Friendly Local Gaming Store, that made your year better. So for a person that I would like to shout out is Meeple Mike, and he is on Instagram and he is regularly part of our playing sessions whenever I'm playing games with other people. He's a fantastic individual. He is a great rules teacher. I know on Mars easily because of him being able to teach it. And honestly, for example, I just randomly said at one point that I'd like to learn on Mars. He pulled out the rule book and learned it like quickly late at night and then had us all come over to play the game and taught us all the game. And it's a Lacerda, so you know it's big and chunky. But he's just like a really nice guy like that. So a really nice guy who likes to teach us games. He makes really great content on Instagram as well. He does dancing, he does shorts, he does it all. And I would tag him, I'm tagging him in this mid-year board gaming tag anyways. But trust me, go give him a follow if you haven't already and check out his content. He is a fantastic human being. If you see him in person, say hello and say it's from me. No, that's weird maybe. Okay. Lastly, there is a bonus question, number 9, and this one is, what is my personal favorite piece of content you've created this year? And for this one, I'm going to say 2 different ones. I mean, one thing I just really liked wearing that hot dog costume and doing a pickleback shot because it's so stupid. But that was just a little short that I did. For other long pieces of content, I really liked when I did my first solo mode check that turned into a actual full playthrough, and that was with Flamecraft Duels. And that's because honestly, that video was supposed to be me talking about how solo mode check works, which is where I take a game and I look at it specifically from its solo point of view and whether it is worthy of your shelf space and hard-earned money if you only ever played the game solo. So a game that has multiplayer ability, but has a solo mode. Is the solo mode strong enough to kind of be on your shelf? So I call that series Solo Mode Check, and the first time I did it was for Flamecraft Duels. My intention was to kind of give a general overview of the game and show a little bit of me playing the game so that you can get a sense of it, and then kind of give my verdict at the end of the video. But the video just turned into a full-on playthrough because I couldn't stop playing, and I feel like that already obviously showed the verdict of how much I liked the game solo. But I was also winning, and it was just like completely authentic. And I think from that part, I also learned that I could, or I do have the ability to do solo playthroughs and film them, which I thought was one of my goals for the whole year, was to be able to learn how to film and edit a full solo playthrough. So being able to do that almost at the beginning of the year was really interesting and an achievement for me. The other thing that I really liked that was personal to me was doing my top 10 list of fan-made solo modes, because all of those solo modes were solo modes that I first found when I entered the hobby. And at that time, I don't think I found as many games automatically including a solo mode into the base game without being like a stretch goal or some afterthought from publishers. But it was actually designed into the game. And those were few and far between at the time when I was entering the hobby. So finding Board Game Geek and then finding that other people in the community were creating these fan-made solo variants, and that there were especially some that are now actually the official solo mode of a lot of board games that I mentioned in that list. And so that one was something that was like personal to me that I was really happy to share. And then the after effect of people liking it was very nice. And I hope to do more of those in the future. I just have to research more solo modes and then like test them myself enough that I feel good enough telling you guys about it. And yeah, that wraps up this video for my mid-year board game tag. Thank you, Ilya, Tyler, and Jenna for tagging me in. I tag you, Meeple Mike, and I tag everyone else who has watched this video. If you would like to give it a try, let me know in the comments below, or jump over to my Discord and you can write in your answers over there in the chat. And otherwise, hope you have a lovely day, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye!